Right now, the Blue Jackets general manager, Don Waddell, is joining us to talk about his day. And so give it to us from your perspective, Don. I mean, you're the guy out there. You're pricing things and trying to figure out, can I add, can I not add, what do I want to add? Actually, let's just start right there, right? Because this group has put you in a position where you probably would like to add, but you have to add without subtracting. And on top of that, you have to add the right piece and probably more importantly, the right person. When you put all that stuff together, how have you approached this whole trade deadline?
Yeah, no, we went into it. First of all, we weren't in a position, we weren't going to trade a first-round pick for a rental player. It just didn't make any sense. Where we're at this point of our franchise, our assets going forward, whether we use those picks to trade for players in the summertime or use them for picks, we've got to continue to put the assets in the bank one way or another. But, we looked at it, we were just going to tweak around the edges. But more importantly, we didn't take anything away from this team. And that was number one. We had some high-profile guys, Provy, and a bunch of other guys that would have drawn lots of interest. And I was pretty public about not distracting from this team. And, these guys, and I talked to a couple of players today, including Z, and, these players, they want to make the playoffs. They want to do it. They've done it to this point. They want to continue on for it. So, and then remember, we got Boone Jenner back on the 22nd after not playing. That's like a new addition to your hockey club. We're going to get Monahan back here soon. We're going to get Silly back here. I mean, we've got a good hockey team here. We're not sitting in a playoff spot because we're a bad hockey team. And so it was important for me to manage not only our assets now, but going forward, but mainly trying to keep this team together.
I'm glad you mentioned talking to the players because that's something that I've wondered about because I remember being in the American Hockey League one year and we had a good team and the Blue Jackets didn't make an addition to that team. And, one of the better players came up to me afterwards and said, why didn't they get us one more guy? We needed one more guy. So I was thinking about that over the last couple of weeks and I wondered what kind of conversations you have with the players because they're a part of it, but also you have a job to do, and Dean Evison has a job to do. So I just wonder how you work all that in.
Yeah, well, if you look at the guys, like I've said, that we were able to get Boone and even guys like Fabro and Marchie that we thought might be out longer, and with the other guys, Monahan and Silly coming back, Goody at end of the month. I mean, we have what I say is 14 NHL forwards. It's not like we have a weak cast of our top guys for sure. So put all that together, there wasn't a lot of place that we could add without subtracting, and that's what I didn't want to do.
Speaking of adding, you add Luke Kunin from San Jose. What do you like about him as a player?
Yeah, I've known Luke for a long time, had him in the U.S. program, his teammates with Christian Fisher. Dean coached Luke, said he's a tremendous person. That goes all the way back to when we signed guys in the summertime when we had all the tragedy and injuries and that. We signed players because not only they're good players, but more importantly, they're good people. This has been a different year than we've ever experienced before. And both guys that we just added here in the last 2 days are really good people. And, like I said, Dean had Luke in Minnesota, smart player. He's coachable. Dean said he's very coachable. He'll do whatever is asked of him. And he's a good person. So, again, we didn't make the big splash, but we added pieces, I think, that can help us down the stretch.
You talked a lot about what the Blue Jackets have right now and how you like the roster as it's currently constructed and the guys coming back. How does Kunin fit in? What role do you imagine him playing?
Yeah, we'll sit out with Dean in the morning and talk more about it, but, he's going to play there. Dean plays all the four lines. There's no doubt about it. So, whether – I don't like getting caught up in first, second, third, fourth lines as much as I do is, put players in positions to succeed. Mm-hmm. Put them in their position where they have the strength, and Dean will do that with both guys. So, we'll have some extra players hopefully here soon when we get the injuries back, and that's okay. A little competition for jobs, and hopefully we stay healthy the rest of the year. But as I said, both guys are big guys. Can play multiple positions, which is always nice to have that flexibility, and we'll figure it all out in the next day or so.
I like that you're picking up these U.S. guys.
Yeah.
I really do. I'm not going to lie to you about it. I love that you have that connection with USA Hockey that you've had for a long time, and that now these relationships that you had with these players when they were kids and that you have maintained because you're so very good at doing that, maintaining relationships, that now here it is where you have a need and you already know the kind of person that you're bringing in to put on your team.
And that's what we talked about even the other day. Is when we went through all the guys that are on the trade board that potentially trades. I said, let's talk about as a player, but then let's talk about them as people. And there's a few guys we didn't know a lot about, and we went to work to make sure that we knew their background and all that. And like I said, you work all year, and your scouts work all year for these days and July 1st. We were prepared for anything that was thrown at us or anything we threw out there, both from a player standpoint and from a personality standpoint. And to me, that's what always makes me feel good, that because you never know what might come up each given day. But our guys were in a position where we were very well prepared.
Very well prepared, and now you add a couple of pieces. You mentioned a moment ago, competition is not a bad thing. And, that's another situation here. When you talk about the chemistry on a team, you have guys that have been in positions, and now all of a sudden, well, they might have to compete a little bit more to stay in that position, or their position might change, and they might have to accept a different role. Again, you do have good people here, and you know that throughout the course of the year. But there's still going to be adjustments for some guys, isn't there?
Oh, for sure. And like I said, we're going to put the best lineup on the ice each and every night. And once we get a couple of the guys back, as I mentioned, Monty and Silly Net, it's going to be really interesting how it shakes out. But I'm confident that we're going to put our best foot forward. They've done it all year. I don't know if we'll get there or not, but I guarantee you we're going to put everything into it to try to get there, and hopefully we can.
We've seen a lot of crazy moves today, and I feel like it's a little bit different than last year where some of the stuff got done ahead of actual deadline day. Just in general, what was kind of the market like out there today? It feels like it was extremely competitive.
Yeah, it was competitive because there wasn't many plays out there. At 3 o'clock, I know there's some few trades coming in. It was the least amount of trades ever on this day in the history of the league. The least was 18 before. We were at 11 then, and I'm sure there's a few more that will trickle in. So many teams were in it. Both in the West and the East. So there wasn't as many potential players out there. There was more buyers there was for players, and that's why the prices got really high. I mean, there were some deals that we were just shaking our heads at, but teams were willing to pay the asking price. So it was an interesting few days here watching what was going on around the league for sure, and a lot of teams in the West really loaded up.
What do you think about some of these big moves? I mean, heck, we just heard Brad Marchand's going to the Florida Panthers. Could you ever imagine him leaving Boston?
Well, I don't, if just reading between the lines, media-wise, I don't know if he wanted to leave, but he's hurt until whatever period of time, and so Boston felt like, hey, we're not going to make the playoffs, or they're going to still try, of course, but if they don't make the playoffs, they wanted to get some assets, and so Billy Z does a good job down in Florida. Last week got Seth Jones, and I'm not surprised that he stuck his neck out to go get Brad either.
For you, as you talked about, there's so many teams that are in it, and you really couldn't make deals or the prices were driven up. Is that something that maybe in the summertime will be a different approach and a different aspect? I know you love to trade. I know you love. I know you love to be a part of it, and you really couldn't be in it today because of all of the circumstances. But could you see it maybe loosening up when you get around draft time this summer?
Yeah, we hope so. We got a lot of draft capital. Like I said, we got 2 first-round picks this year, and if we maybe they're going to pick players or trade for players, and certainly we're going to have some holes that we want to fill. There's going to be some turnover, of course. I think everybody expects that. You can do it one of 2 ways in the summertime. It's either trade for players or go into free agency. We all know what free agency creates. Usually you have to give too many years and too much money, but whatever is thrown at us, again, we'll be ready for it.
When you look at this season and the young guys in Cleveland that have had a chance to come up and play, Mikhail Putia, who makes the team out of camp and stays here for months, and now I know he's been up and down. But Luca Del Belbaluz, who gets a chance to come up and play here for a good stretch for a couple of weeks. How much does that help you for 2 things? Number one, you can really evaluate what these guys might be in the National Hockey League. And number 2, even though you've acquired some depth now, if you have to use that depth, you have more in Cleveland that you can draw upon.
100%. I think Trent does a great job down in Cleveland. And we play the same system. Every time a guy's come up here, the coaches don't have to spend 2 days to teach them what we're doing. They already know what we're doing. They just have to sit with them and go over it. So to development is key to long-term success of your franchise. You're not going to be able to trade for every player. You're not going to be able to sign everybody in free agent. You got to develop your own players. And the guys you mentioned that came up here, they all did their job as they were asked to. And certainly, the American League's a good league, and those guys playing down there is only going to help them. And hopefully, they'll have a deep playoff run.
Don, the last thing for me is you and I talked right at the start of this season, and I asked you what your goal for the Blue Jackets this year would be, and you said play meaningful games at the end of the regular season. We're here right now. You've added at the deadline. I'm sure you didn't expect to do that at the beginning of this season. What is your goal for this team for the rest of this year now that they are playing meaningful hockey?
Yeah, we want to stay competitive through the regular season here and try to win as many games as we can. We got a tough schedule we're in the middle of right now. We got to survive this next couple of weeks. And if we can, I think we're going to really put ourselves in a good position. But, this is playoff hockey for us right now. Every game you don't win, it might be a game that costs you not making the playoffs. So our guys are getting that experience right now that they haven't been able to get the last few years. So to me, we want to get there, but the games we're playing right now are going to help all our players, particularly our young players, develop and take that next step. And if we are fortunate to get to the playoffs, that's just going to be a huge bonus for us.
I got to ask you this question after the way the last two games have gone, because at the beginning of the season, you said, quite frankly, goaltending was a question mark. You didn't know where it was and where it might be going. What you have watched from Elvis Merzlikins over the course of the past couple of weeks, and especially in the last two games, even though they were losses, how much does that clear up a picture for you?
Well, it's been Elvis all year has been tremendous. He's won us a lot more games than he's lost us, that's for sure. And you think of some of the nights he stood on his head to keep us in games and us finding a way to score goals late in games to win. So I'm very pleased with our goaltending. It's if Elvis wasn't playing at the level he is, I don't know where we'd be, to be honest with you. We went a little dry the last two games, but we got to remember we played two of the teams that are probably going to be competing for a Stanley Cup in Florida and Tampa Bay. So, there's no excuse for that but just shows you the work we have in front of us to be able to get to that level.
All right, you haven't been around the last couple of games because you've had to be in meetings and try to work the phones. Now that the trade deadline is passed, do you stay with the team more and get to come and watch up close and try to enjoy this run with them?
Yeah, what I'm going to do is stay with the team a little bit right now, and then try to pick out some of the guys that we were targeting in the draft and see as many of those guys as I can between now and the end of the year. A lot of their seasons will end in the next 30 days or so. So try to get on the road, get as much live viewing as you can, but be around the team as much as possible.
Don, thank you very much for taking some time for us today. We really appreciate it. Hey, congratulations on adding what you were looking to add, and hopefully it's going to be enough to get this team where you want it to be before it's all said and done.
Always a pleasure to be with you guys. Thank you.